And my husband and I set a very steep financial goal of, we want to save X amount of thousands of dollars over this month. And the way that we did it was we just lived very, very, very much below our means for 6 months. And it's not something that I think everybody can do. I think we were fortunate that when I was in school, I was bringing in so little money. So we were already used to that. So we just took all that extra money that I was making and shoved it aside and basically lived on one income. And for us, with no kids and we didn't have significant debt, this is something that we were able to do. And I think anyone in our boat should do it if you're really serious.
But this is my house, Mommy. The one I asked Mr. Pringle for. It is, I know it is.
Welcome to The Pursuit of Home, coming to you from New York City. This is real people buying real estate and their unique journey to get there. We share the tips, tricks, and frameworks to help you navigate the bumps in the road that you won't see on reality TV or social media, and which no one has talked about until now. This is a story of a classic first-time buyer going through the process in all of its excitement and ups and downs. But what would you do if someone, say your real estate agent, told you you didn't have enough money for the down payment? How would you react? Would you get frustrated, depressed? Would you take it personally? What would be the most helpful way to react? In New York, the numbers are pretty crazy, and I tell people that if they get overwhelmed by the size of the purchase price, just take away a zero. But it doesn't matter whether you're spending $100,000 or $10 million for your home. When money becomes part of the process, everyone's money issues come out. Let's see how this first-time homebuyer dealt with her money issues in a healthy way.
I spoke to your real estate agent. She told me that she wished every buyer was like you.
That's so nice.
Well, why do you think that is?
Probably because I'm very type A, and so I was very on top of things, which I would imagine makes her life a little bit easier when I'm also sending her listings, being like, hey, can we look at this one?
Yeah, I think it's more than that. We'll probably get a little bit into it. You dove into your search, and then you stepped back. What exactly happened?
So my husband and I, we really wanted to be able to find a house in January of 2023. And when we were looking, we saw a lot of things that we liked that were out of our price range. And we kind of had a conversation of, okay, if we're going to do this, we're really going to do this. We need to get something that's going to fit us for a longer length of time. Because the things that we could afford at that time probably would have really only fit our family for a couple of years. And that didn't really make a whole lot of financial sense to us. And so we had a conversation of, okay, let's take a step back. Let's take a couple months, set some financial goals, be really tight on the budget, save a pretty substantial amount of money, and then let's re-enter the market when we have that cash so we can buy something that we really want that's going to fit our needs for, 7-10 years.
So I want to zoom in on that. So you were looking at things with your agent, and then you said, wait a minute, something's off here.
Yeah.
Did you say to her, hey, what do we need to do right now? If we step back, what do we need to do? Did she give you the advice to save some more money? Did she say, hey, I need you to save X amount of dollars? Did she give you a dollar number?
No, not really. It was just like we kind of had a conversation of, okay, these are the things we can afford and these are the homes that we want, and they're not lining up. And I was in the transition of starting a new job where I was going to be making a decent amount more money than what I had been making. And with that kind of transition period, my husband and I were like, well, maybe also this might be a hard time to buy a house just with, the stress of starting a new job, kind of waiting for that job security to settle in, see how things go. It might be kind of overwhelming. And so we had a conversation with her. And she was like, look, take a couple months off, save more money. If the things you want are at this price point and you can't afford that right now, then just take the time and save. And let's talk when you're ready to reenter.
So you sort of, you shake hands, you say, okay, we're going to take a pause. What did you learn during that pause?
That the market moves very, very quickly. That was the biggest thing. Like I said earlier, I'm very type A. So I was looking at Zillow every day still, even though I knew that we weren't really in the market in that time. But I kind of wanted to get an idea of, okay, what is the market looking like? How fast are things moving? When we're really serious, how ready do we need to be? Is it we have a month or do we have 48 hours, which in our case, it was 36 hours. And, so it was just kind of giving me that awareness of, okay, when we are going to do this, like we have to be ready. We have to have the financing set up, the money, ready to be withdrawn, that sort of thing.
And were you surprised at how you were able to save. Can you talk a little bit about what that looked like?
Yeah, so I was a bedside nurse and I finished my master's program and became a nurse practitioner. So that pay raise was pretty significant for me. And my husband and I set a very steep financial goal of, we want to save X amount of thousands of dollars over this month. And the way that we did it was we just lived very, very, very much below our means for 6 months. And it's not something that I think everybody can do. I think we were fortunate that when I was in school, I was bringing in so little money. So we were already used to that. So we just took all that extra money that I was making and shoved it aside and basically lived on one income. And for us with no kids and we didn't have significant debt, this is something that we were able to do. And I think anyone in our boat should do it if you're really serious about buying a home and you don't have, family support. And it wasn't easy, but it's attainable. And there's lots of things in life that you think you can give up that you really can. And that's kind of what we did for 6 months.
And now as a homeowner, what lessons do you still carry with you now? You bought the house, now you saved the money, and now you own the house. Are there lessons that you still carry with you today?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was definitely subject to shopping when I didn't need to. I think there's very much a culture of you need this, you need that. And there's influencers shoving products down your throat all the time, especially if you're active on social media. And having to cut that out made me realize okay, these things really don't bring me happiness. There's a lot of things that bring me happiness where travel, where I'd much rather my money go towards that or making my house a home. And so I'm definitely shopping much, much, much less than I was before.
Well, thanks for sharing this. Maybe you come back and tell us. We'll do a little update in a few months, but we'd love to hear how things are going for you soon. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with my buyer. One of the things that was so great about it, it was just someone who was really, in the way I would like to describe it, is very coachable. Someone who took advice, followed through, and kind of was this super type A person. We're going to talk a lot about that conversation. We're going to unpack it after the break when we bring on Westchester broker, Julie Alcé. So stick around and we'll be right back. Well, we're back and I'm very happy to have on the podcast Julie Alcé, who is a 10-year veteran of the Westchester area. Julie, how you doing?
Good, Scott. Thank you so much for having me.
One of the things that stands out about you as compared to so many agents is that, while we're always called, we're therapists and, we're this and that, and we're trying to educate people, you were actually a school teacher for 10 years. And that is a very different skill set, I think, or actually being professionally trained. And, it seems to me like working with first-time buyers when they're so stressed out can really seem like you're working with, unruly school children in some way. So how does that help you educate buyers?
Okay. So recently I was at an award event with our CEO, Candace Adams, and she said the best agents were school teachers. And I've heard that before. So for whatever reason,
I wonder, how many, that's not a statistic I have in my back pocket. How many people go from being school teachers to being real estate agents? I have no idea.
Great question.
I mean, you're among the top 5% of real estate agents across your entire firm. So the CEO of Berkshire, it's a big, big brokerage firm. I guess she has access to know kind of, a lot of different people who started in different professions. And being a broker is definitely a second profession for people.
Yes, a lot of times it is. So how do I take my education in education? And the other thing is funny enough, I was a psych major and I have psychologists. My mom was a therapist. My brother's a psychologist. So I marry all those things together. So the education, the compassion, the psychology portion, and I did work in the business world before I worked in education even. So putting that all together, but I think the biggest thing is making sure that people feel listened to and understood, understanding what their needs are, what their wants are, and seeing, and going from there. So a lot of times with first-time home buyers and even people that have bought before but maybe haven't bought in a while is breaking down the process. So in education, we break down the process for our students to teach them a certain skill. And so it's the same thing here. So what is the process to get to this step and what is the process to get to that step? So for example, okay, we go see properties, we make offers. These are the pieces of the offer. Then what happens after you get an accepted offer? All the different pieces. So it's breaking things down, giving them a general overview of the whole thing, but then really staying in those portions and giving them just a little bit beyond. I feel like that gives them some sort of guidance and some sort of it feels like they're being held a little bit more.
Right. I mean, there's only so much you can do. You can lay out the here's the syllabus for the whole semester, but until you're really, in the trenches, it's kind of hard to, I think for a lot of people, it's hard to know, what's the order of the day? What's the lesson today? Well, you listened to the interview that I did. How would you have spoken differently, if at all, to this buyer? I mean, in this sense, it was like she needed to be told maybe, hey, it's time to stop the search for a minute and come back after a little while. I mean, she also strikes me as someone who's a little bit more type A. I think she describes herself as type A. Do you manage that kind of buyer differently? Yeah. So I guess I'm just curious to know how you would have reacted as her agent.
Well, some of my best clients are type A. Actually, those make some of the best clients for me. They're very on the ball. They don't wait for things to happen to them. They make things happen. They're very diligent, keep us on our, keep people on their toes, and then the process moves and they tend to be more decisive. So, Maddie was just so practical. She decided what we can afford and what we want to be in don't align. So we're going to take a step back. And we're going to wait and we're going to get more money before we move to what we want, because they figured that they would outgrow and not feel as comfortable as they wanted in the place that they could afford currently. So I thought that was a great move if she wanted to do that. Also with her, it was that she had just become a new nurse practitioner and she was going to be receiving a higher salary. So that was coming very soon. And then they also, cut back on their finances. She said, we lived more like I was when I was a student. If something didn't bring me joy, I wouldn't buy it. So all of that was great. Not everybody feels like they could do that, and not everybody can handle that. So what I like to do is I like to say that there are also different options. Okay. One of the options is sometimes, and I'm not always recommending this, but sometimes people borrow from their 401k and they don't even know that they can and pay themselves back. That's one. There are also some buyer grant programs. That's two. And then the other thing is maybe they want to pivot. Maybe they can pivot and buy a condo or a co-op instead of, say, a house, or a purchase in an area that might be different than they thought they would, but they might be equally as happy there. So, for example, if you buy a condo or a co-op, like I did when I first bought, then you can take that money and the equity in that and save cash at the same time, and then parlay that into something later on, maybe the house of your dreams or something like that. So there's different ways.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, not even imagine. I mean, we've been in plenty of situations in the city where I work where a buyer can can feel like when you're offering these backup options, or in the case of Maddie, where she was told, hey, it's probably smart for you, given what we know about your professional moves and all of that, that you can actually take a step back and save some money. I think a lot of buyers can be upset, feel like they're like a failure, that their original plan isn't coming to fruition. And I would really encourage, like you said, for people, if you're listening out there, that you don't know what that perfect home is going to look like, and you don't know how it's going to unfold. And it's almost like, how you get there can take a whole lot of different forms, and, to be open, to sort of have an open mind and open heart to that process. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for a lot of frustration, because it's, there are going to be setbacks, and this is just one of them. Right. And I guess a question I have for you, Julie, is the conversation with Maddie. I think she took it really well. Not everybody takes it as well, like I'm talking about. How do you have that tougher conversation when things don't go well?
Great point. She took it very well. Not everybody takes it so well. And I've had people that haven't taken it as well. And you have to have your integrity and stick to your guns and say, and share what's what. And, sometimes people aren't going to like it, but for example, if somebody's trying to put 5% down in this area and there's all these highest and best, it's not going to get them what they want. And they're going to be frustrated over and over and over again. So, there's different ways to handle that. But yeah, some of it's just a letdown. But then, sometimes I might give that buyer to like a more junior agent because they have the time to run around with that person. And sometimes they come around and sometimes they don't. But it is tough, and you never want to dash somebody else's hope.
Well, I guess then the biggest piece of advice is, that you have to kind of study hard for the test. And then, if you don't get the grade that you want, then you can come begging for a chance to to do a little bit more review on the test and get your grade up a little bit. Something like that. That's the metaphor. That's as far as I could take the metaphor. So Julie, thank you so much for being here. And we will make sure we put all your contact info in the show notes.
Wonderful.
All right.
Thank you so much, Scott.
Thank you. Well, I love that conversation with Julie Alcé from Berkshire Hathaway Home Services as we sort of thought about what it means to be a first-time buyer when you become almost like a little kid again and you need someone to sort of hold your hand and help figure out when it's time to move forward, when it's time to be in timeout maybe, and save a little bit of money. But I wanted to unpack one thing that Julie had to say, which was about maybe having a junior agent, a younger agent, spend more time with you as a buyer if you're not ready to take the advice. And, that is definitely could feel like being put in timeout. So I think the takeaway there is agents are trying so hard to help you get out of your own way and stay out of your own way. And sometimes it takes a little while for that advice to sink in sometimes, especially when you're hearing maybe we need to look at a different area. Maybe we need to change your budget. Maybe we need to look not at a house, but at a condo or some kind of other property. So I think it's a matter of looking at the whole process as a big picture and the journey of it. And sometimes it's going to turn out a little differently than you expect. So again, I think I said it, but keep an open mind and an open heart. And I think that's the best way you're going to have an experience that you really enjoy. And, I want to thank Julie for being a part of it. You can tell how much she cares about her clients. I think that's the kind of agent that you're looking to work with, especially as a first-time buyer. If you like this episode, make sure, subscribe, push the button wherever it is, and follow us, send on this to your friends. And in the show notes, you have all the links on where you can sign up for our real estate newsletters and everything else. And just want to say thanks to the people at Brown Harris Stevens and the Moore Network who helped produce this podcast. And we will see you next time. Real estate touches every aspect of our lives, from design and architecture to investing and the economy. Now there's a way to get all your real estate information in one place, the Moore Network. With more than 20 webcast series and podcasts, the Mastery of Real Estate Network is powered by Brown Harris Stevens, one of the country's most distinguished brokerages. Discover advice from notable entrepreneurs, compelling topics, and access top global real estate experts. Learn more about and subscribe to our YouTube and Apple podcasts by visiting getmorenetwork.com.